I'm carrying 8 million in cash to buy premium wild yellow sea bass in this fishing village. But just as I'm about to load them onto the boat, the fishermen collectively jack up the price. They're backing out of everything we agreed on, threatening to throw the fish back into the sea rather than sell. Jason, the current price is 5,000 per pound, but your offer is only 1,500. That's a robbery, Jason. This is Simon, the nephew of the village head, Chun. He's a hotshot legal advisor for a foreign firm. Today, he's the one negotiating with me on behalf of everyone. Seeing those familiar fishermen hiding behind Simon with shifty eyes, I realized this wasn't going to be simple. Negotiate. The contract is signed and the prices are set. What is there to negotiate? I kept smiling anyway. Time was running out. We have to get the fresh fish into the flash freezer immediately. If you have something to say, let's do it after the boat is loaded. We'll sit and chat then. Hold on, Chin says, stepping out from the crowd. He blocks the live water tank. Who dares touch my fish? Chin, what is this? We have a contract. Cash on delivery. Are you breaking it? Don't scare me with that scrap of paper. Freedom of contract. Everything must be based on fair market value. Tell me, what's the current price for premium yellow sea bass? In high-end seafood restaurants, it goes for 6,000 or 7,000. And the top-tier piece is auctioned for tens of thousands. You hear that? Village head, the price you're giving isn't fair at all. Mr. Su, that's not how you do the math. First, that's the final price in high-end restaurants, not at the dock. Second, in business, you have to respect the ethics of a contract. 6 months ago, during the fishing ban when you had nothing to eat, I gave you a guaranteed minimum income. You weren't talking about freedom of contract back then, were you? And to make sure your village's fish could leave the port alive and on time. I pointed at the mooring under my feet. I invested 1.2 million upfront to expand this deep water cold chain dock. Those storm-resistant high-sea cages were a trick, and the sale price was a gift from me. If we're applying freedom of contract, shouldn't that money be included in the costs? You did that voluntarily. Who asked you to build the dock? You chose to pay for it yourself. That's just your marginal transaction cost to secure resources. What does that have to do with our fish price? I looked at Chun, surprised. 6 months ago, he was a humble fisherman who only said, "Boss, you're so kind." Now he's dropping legal terms like marginal transaction cost. I got it instantly. Simon taught him this. They wanted to fleece me. I took a deep breath. I stopped arguing, pulled out my phone, and took a photo. A photo of the 8 million in cash stacked on the dock. Fine. Since Chin wants to talk about freedom of contract, I'll be free too. I immediately called my assistant, Leo, to lock down all the equipment at the deep water cold chain dock. Cut the power to the refrigeration system. Jason, what is the meaning of this? It's simple. I'm withdrawing my investment and rescinding the contract. I turned around and walked away. Simon laughed sarcastically behind my back. Are you faking it? Do you think we can't survive without you? I didn't look back. I just threw one sentence over my shoulder. Then good luck. The fishermen, watching my figure walk away, erupted in cheers. Great. We finally got rid of that leech. Yeah, if we sell it ourselves, we're sure to get a better price. Only one simple fisherman, Arthur, chased after me. Boss, I'll sell you my fish at the original price. Fine, I'll buy it all. Then Chin's shout came from behind. Arthur, dare to sell to him, and you'll see. Don't you ever come back to work. But Arthur stood firm by my side. I knew the best was yet to come. The next morning, the dock was buzzing. Simon had actually found a certain boss Walter, who arrived in a luxury car, wearing a gold chain, looking like new money. Chin was ecstatic. Relax, Walter, am the most honest man in business. 3,000 per catch. I pay in cash. Hearing the price, the fisherman's eyes lit up. It was double what I used to give. We should have done this sooner. Our fish are worth that price. Chin couldn't stop smiling. Simon really has connections. He found a big buyer immediately. Fantastic. I leaned against my car, watching the scene with indifference. Then it's a happy partnership, don't worry. My refrigerated truck will be here soon. I guarantee the fish reached the capital alive. The fisherman cheered. Boss Walter walked over to the live water channel, and his face suddenly changed. How is it that all the fish are dead? Impossible. They were jumping and alive yesterday. The cultivation system in the live water channel. The power was cut last night. It's a miracle the fish lasted this long. Simon jumped in immediately. You did this on purpose. This is malicious sabotage. Sabotage. The equipment is mine, and I pay for the electricity. What's the problem if I cut the power to my own vehicle? They all tried to run and operate the machines, but found they required a password and fingerprint. Furious, Simon shouted at me. What's going on, boss? What's the password? As I pulled out my phone, I said, this is my company's patented equipment. Only authorized personnel can operate it. Boss, don't joke around. If the fish die, we're all lost. And why should I care? I turned around to leave. At that moment, Arthur approached with his box of fish. Boss, here are my fish. I looked at his box. The large golden fish were still jumping and alive. How did you keep them alive last night? When I heard you were cutting the power, I moved the fish to deep sea cages where the seawater flows and they don't suffocate. Smart. I pulled out cash on the spot at the price of 1,500 per kilo. I paid Arthur the total, exactly 500,000 in cash, right there on the dock. The other fishermen watched, their eyes nearly popping out of their heads. I led Arthur toward the only preservation corridor that was still functioning. The one I had reserved only for those who keep their word. Simon threw himself in the way. Why can he use it and we can't? I looked at him coldly. Because he keeps his word and you don't. I pressed my fingerprint to the scanner. The door to the preservation corridor opened slowly. Arthur's fish were quickly loaded into a professional cold chain truck. Meanwhile, behind me, the other fishermen's fish were turning belly up one after another in the live water tanks. Uncle Chun knelt on the ground, hugging a dead fish and sobbing. It's over. It's all over. Boss Walter stood there with a grim face, speechless. I don't buy dead fish. Figure it out yourselves. With that, I turned to leave. Simon grabbed me, shouting for Boss Walter. You can't leave. We signed a contract. The contract? Your fish are all dead. What contract are you even talking about? I sat in my car watching this circus when my phone suddenly rang. It was Leo. Boss, someone is secretly investigating our special steal. It must be a lawyer hired by Simon. I flashed a cold smile. Let them investigate. The deeper they dig, the more it will hurt later. On the third day, Boss Walter suddenly returned. He brought a mountain of cooling equipment and technicians to Uncle Chun. I'm a loyal man. I brought the equipment myself. Let's start over. The fisherman saw hope again. Great, there's still a chance. This time it'll work for sure. Simon looked at me with pride and said, Hey boss. See, without you, the world keeps on spinning. I leaned against my car and said nothing. Boss Walter's men began the installation. Their boss stood there, speechless. They put the gear in the live water tanks, but when they flipped the switch, the machines shrieked with an alarm. What's wrong? The technician inspected the setup for a long time. Sweating buckets, he said. Boss Walter, the connectors on these live water tanks. They're a special size. Our equipment doesn't fit. Walter frowned. Then modify them. Impossible. The tank material. It's also special. Forcing a modification would break the seal, and the fish would die anyway. So what do we do? What now? The technician shook his head helplessly. Unless we use original factory equipment, there's no solution. Boss Walter stared at me. Name a price. Rent me the equipment. I smiled. Sorry, they aren't for loan. Don't push it. This is a technological monopoly. I'll sue you. A black executive van pulled up at the dock, and Sarah stepped out in her high heels. Who wants to sue our company? She held a thick stack of documents in her hands. Simon smiled sarcastically. You're monopolizing technology. You're violating antitrust laws. Sarah opened the folder. This is our company. Here are the 127 registered patents. They cover every key technology for offshore aquaculture, live water preservation, and cold chain transport. She threw one document after another in front of Simon. This is the certificate from the Ministry of Agriculture. The recognition certificate for new fishing facilities. This is the exclusive dock usage right approved by the Ocean Administration. This is the unalterable internet traceability system. Every document bore a bright red official seal. Simon's face grew paler by the second. Sarah looked at him coldly. Mr. Sue, you're a legal advisor for a foreign firm, right? Then you should know. Patent protection is a legal agreement, not a monopoly. What you're doing is maliciously building technical barriers. Simon tried to justify. Sarah smiled sarcastically. Then, may I ask, why didn't you question it when you signed the contract? Now that you've breached it, you come to question our legitimate rights? Simon was speechless. Boss Walter realized something was wrong. He slipped quietly toward his car, but Sarah suddenly spoke up. Boss Walter, don't leave so fast. I still have something to say to you. Boss Walter froze in his tracks. Yesterday you agreed to buy at 3,000 per kilo. Now, even if the fish have problems, the contract is still valid, isn't it? Since the fish died, the contract is automatically voided. Sarah pulled out a stack of documents. But you signed a guaranteed minimum purchase agreement. Regardless of whether the fish are alive or dead, you must pay the 30% deposit as agreed. Boss Walter snatched the documents and looked at them, his face turning green. But Simon signed the agreement on behalf of the fishermen. To reassure Boss Walter, he added this clause himself. Boss Walter pointed at Simon and started screaming insults at him. Look at me. Simon panicked. I'm doing it for everyone's good. Uncle Chun reacted as well. For everyone's good? And the deposit? Did you mention it or not? Simon stuttered, unable to speak. That's when I slowly intervened. Wait a moment. How is our fish shop doing? Sarah's stock is already all in storage and on its way to the provincial capital. I looked at the fisherman. Gentlemen, even if there's no business, we're still friends. I'll take my leave first. I got into the car, and through the rearview mirror, I saw Uncle Chin grabbing Simon by the collar. The dock was in total chaos, but inside my car, Sarah handed me a report. Boss, we've thoroughly investigated Boss Walter's background. This guy is a repeat offender. He specializes in buying dead, rotten fish, then treats them with chemicals and sells them as live fish. Narrowing my eyes, I said, interesting. It seems this play isn't over yet. 3 days later, I received a call from Sarah. Boss, something serious has happened in the village. I arrived at the dock. From a distance, I catch a nauseating stench. All those yellow croakers are dead, piled on the shore and reeking. The fishermen are desperately looking for Boss Walter, but they discover he has already fled. Uncle Chun is curled up on the ground. He seems to have aged 10 years. Everything is lost. Millions in fish have rotted away. The other fishermen also wear expressions of pure despair. They haven't even paid off their bank loans yet. And now they've lost even their capital. Simon hides behind the crowd, not daring to speak. Suddenly, someone spots me. Boss Walter has arrived. Every eye lands on me. Instantly, Uncle Chun crawls over and grabs my legs. Boss Walter, please buy them at the original price. 1,500 a kilo. No, 1,000 is fine, even 500. I look at the pile of rotten fish. Uncle Chun, are you joking? Boss Walter, we know we did wrong. We beg you to be magnanimous, and overlook our mistake. The other fishermen also kneel, pleading with me. I smile. Sarcastically, a few days ago, you weren't saying that. Back then, you said you'd throw it all in the sea too. Feed the fish before selling it to me. Uncle Chin weeps, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. We were blinded by greed. We were greedy. Boss Walter, please, give us a chance to survive. I crouch down and look Uncle Chun in the eye. Uncle Chun, do you know the difference between a live fish and a dead fish? Uncle Chun is stunned. I stand up and point at the pile of dead fish. A live fish is called seafood. Hey, dead fish is called trash. I pull out my phone and open a page. Right now on the market, the purchase price for large dead fish is 50 per kilo, and that's only out of consideration for them being in good condition, for the sake of our relationship, but these fish are rotten. If I accept them, it wouldn't even cover the transport costs. Uncle Chun is completely devastated. Then what do we do? I don't know. I turned to leave, but Simon suddenly ran out and blocked my path. Boss Walter, this isn't entirely my fault. You cut the power on purpose. You're responsible too. I stopped. What responsibility do I have? You knew that by cutting the power, the fish would die. You're deliberately damaging our interests. I laughed. Simon, you're a lawyer. So let me ask you. My equipment, my shop, when I use them, isn't that my business? But this is malicious. Malicious. I pointed at him. Who breached the contract first? Who talked about freedom of contract? Now that there are problems, you blame me. Simon was left speechless. I looked at the fishermen surrounding us. Gentlemen, I do business based on the spirit of the contract. 6 months ago, you had nothing to eat. I guaranteed you a minimum income. You had no equipment. I spent 1.2 million building a dock. You couldn't raise fish, so I gave you deep sea cages for free. And how did you repay me? We signed a contract, and suddenly you raise the price and break it. Now that there's trouble, you come asking me to pick up trash. My voice grew louder. I'm sorry, I don't collect trash. With that, I got in the car without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I saw Uncle Chun grab a dead fish and hurl it hard into Simon's face. It's all your fault. All because of this idiot. The other fisherman closed in two. Simon was beaten and fled, shielding his head. In the car, Linda handed me a document. Boss Walter, the fish from the other bay has been delivered. Boss Lee is very satisfied. He's offering 8,000 per pound and wants a long-term partnership. I nodded. How is Sam? He made over 2 million and is completely stunned. He keeps saying he wants to buy you dinner. I looked out the window and said, work hard. There will be plenty of opportunities to make money in the future. Linda suddenly spoke up. Director Walter, someone from the village posted online that you're an unscrupulous merchant and that you're intentionally harming the fishermen. I smiled coldly. Find out who did it. We already found out. It's Simon. I narrowed my eyes. That boy just won't give up. Linda suddenly handed me a tablet. Director Walter, there's something else. Last night, Simon went sneaking around Sam's family's floating cages. I looked at the surveillance footage. Simon was lurking stealthily next to the cages. I flashed a cold smile. Interesting. It looks like he wants to steal Sam's fish. Linda suddenly asked, should we call the police? I shook my head. No rush. Let him steal. I want him to steal until he's ruined. Soon, the fishing village's economy completely collapsed. The banks started pressing for loans, and the fishermen didn't even have enough to eat. Uncle Chun led a group that blocked my company's entrance, waving banners and wailing. Unscrupulous boss, give us back our hard-earned money. Passers-by stopped to take photos and point fingers. I stood in front of my office window, watching the commotion below. Linda walked in. Director Walter, should we call the police? I shook my head. Let them make a scene. When they get tired, they'll leave. But unexpectedly, at that moment, Sam called. His voice was breaking as he sobbed. Director Walter, the kingfish is gone from my cage. I frowned. When did it happen? Last night. When I went to check, it was still there. But this morning, it was gone. It's the top quality kingfish I was saving for the auction. It's worth at least 500,000. I smiled sarcastically. I know who did it. I played the surveillance footage, and sure enough, I saw Simon, accompanied by 2 people the night before, stealing the kingfish with professional tools. Linda asked, should we report it? No. I stared at Simon's arrogant expression on the screen. Does he want to steal the fish to attend the high-level auction in the city and turn his situation around? Let him go. Linda was stunned. Director Walter, what are you planning? I turned to her. Did you forget what each of these top-quality yellow croakers has implanted under their scales? Linda understood instantly. A traceability microchip. I nodded and notified Mr. Lee. Tonight at the city seafood auction, I will attend in person. Linda smiled. Understood. That same night, at the most luxurious hotel in the city, the seafood auction was underway. Owners of major hotels and wealthy merchants were attending. I was sitting in the VIP box. Through the tinted glass, I saw Simon looking stealthy, sitting in a corner. In front of him was an elegantly designed portable cooler. The auctioneer announced loudly, the next lot is very special. A 4-kilogram, top-quality wild yellow croaker. Starting price, 100,000. Simon raised his paddle instantly. This is my fish. The auctioneer was stunned. Sir, you. Simon stood up. I am the owner of this fish, and I want to auction it. He opened the cooler. Inside was Sam's croaker. Everyone. The crowd went wild. What a massive fish. It looks excellent, the auctioneer said after inspecting it. It really is top quality. So let's follow the rules. Starting price, 150,000. Simon flashed a triumphant smile. The bidding began. 160,000, 180,000, 200,000. The price skyrocketed. Simon was trembling with excitement. But at that moment, I pressed the communication button in the box. One moment, my voice echoed through the speakers. Everyone froze. The auctioneer asked respectfully, "Sir, in the VIP box, do you have a comment?" I stood up and stepped out of the box. When I appeared in the auction hall, silence took over the room. Simon saw me. His face turned pale. Instantly, "Director Walter, what are you doing here?" I ignored him. I walked straight to the auctioneer's podium. "Mr. Auctioneer, please use this device to scan the fish." I handed him a handheld scanner. The auctioneer took it curiously and passed it over the croaker. The device beeped immediately. On the big screen, a series of data appeared. Chip number AUT202-40315. Registered owner, Walter. Registration date, 3 months ago. The crowd erupted in whispers. I looked at Simon. "Mr. Simon, can you explain why my fish is in your hands?" Simon, turning white, stammered. I brought it to auction it for him." "Oh, really?" I pulled out my phone. I called my office and turned on the speaker. "Sam, did you commission Simon to auction your fish?" Sam's voice was heard. "No, Director Walter, my fish was stolen last night. I was just about to report it." Absolute silence. I looked at Simon. "Did you hear that?" Simon collapsed and fell to his knees. "Director Walter, I was wrong. I was really wrong," I said coldly. "Now you know you were wrong? It's too late." I turned to the auctioneer. "Please call the police. This fish is stolen." The wealthy merchants. The watching merchants began to whisper. It turns out it was stolen fish. What nerve, trying to sell it here. In less than 10 minutes, the police arrived. Simon was arrested on the spot. Before leaving, he kept screaming, "Director Walter, please forgive me. I have elderly parents and young children." I didn't even look at him. Simon completely fell apart. Someone in the crowd recognized me. "Isn't that the heir to the Walter Group?" "Seriously? Is he the CEO who controls the entire seafood supply chain in Asia?" I thought he was just an ordinary buyer. The place erupted in an uproar. Mr. Lee approached and respectfully handed me his business card. "Director Walter, please excuse my lack of respect. I didn't expect you to come here personally." I took the card. "Mr. Lee, don't worry. I only came to resolve a personal matter." Mr. Lee lowered his voice. "Director Walter, seriously, about the long-term supply, you set the price." I looked at him. "Mr. Lee, it's not that I don't want to cooperate, but the current management of that fishing village is too chaotic. They can't guarantee quality." Mr. Lee frowned. "Too chaotic? Quality can't be guaranteed at all." Mr. Lee frowned. "I'm going to reorganize that village and establish a standardized breeding and purchasing system." Mr. Lee perked up at the news. "Mr. Walter, what do you mean?" I gave a slight smile. "I can try, but on one condition." "Tell me." "All the fishermen must accept my management and follow my rules. They can no longer keep improvising like before." Mr. Lee nodded immediately. "That's easy. I can help you convince them." I shook my head. "No need. Soon they will come to beg me themselves." The next day, in the fishing village, Uncle Chun received an ultimatum from the bank. If he didn't pay in 3 days, they would seize his boats and cages. They panicked. "What do we do? The fish are dead. How are we going to pay?" "It's all that bastard Simon's fault. He ruined us." Uncle Chun collapsed onto the ground, looking like he'd lost his soul. Just then, Arthur arrived driving a brand new car. "Thanks to Director Walter, I sold my batch of fish for over 2 million. "What? 2 million? Everyone was stunned. Uncle Chun asked, trembling. "Arthur, didn't you only have a few £1,000s of fish? How could you sell it for so much?" Arthur replied proudly, "Director Walter took my fish to Mr. Lee's luxury restaurant. Mr. Lee paid for the fish. He paid 8,000 per kilo and wants a long-term partnership with me." Hearing this, the fishermen felt deep regret. If they had known, they never would have listened to Simon. Right? Now look, Arthur is rich and will have to beg. Suddenly, Uncle Chun grabbed Arthur's arm. "Arthur, can you speak for us?" asked Director Walter to give us another chance. Arthur said quickly, "Uncle Chun, it's not that I don't want to help. It's that you all crossed the line. Director Walter doesn't want anything to do with you now." "Then what do we do?" "The bank is going to evict us." Arthur thought for a moment. "Maybe you should go see Director Walter and apologize sincerely." Uncle Chun grit his teeth. "Let's go. We're going right now." That same afternoon, Uncle Chun and a dozen fishermen arrived at my company building. This time they didn't bring banners or cause a scene. Instead, they knelt down in an orderly line. At the entrance, "Director Walter, please, come down to see us." Passers-by were taking photos. The situation with the villagers was looking bad. They were desperate men. Even though they were at fault, they had nowhere left to run. Like trapped animals, they stayed there waiting. That's when the memories came flooding back. Arthur lowered his head. "I know, but they're my neighbors. I grew up with them." I stayed silent for a moment. "Fine, let them up. But I want to make one thing clear first." Arthur ran down, and soon Uncle Chun and the fishermen entered the office, dejected and filthy. They knelt before me. "Director Walter, we were blind. We were greedy. Please, give us another chance." Sitting in my chair, I looked at them coldly. "A chance? I already gave you a chance, and you didn't value it." Uncle Chun prostrated himself. "Director Walter, tell us what to do." "We'll do whatever you order, just to survive." I stood up, walked to the window. "You want to survive? Fine. But this time, it will be under my rules. Tell us, we'll obey." I turned around. "From today on, you aren't independent fishermen. You're employees of my company. All fish will be bought by me exclusively, with unified prices and unified sales." The fishermen looked at each other. "Will we be able to make money?" I smiled sarcastically. "Make money? Right now, you can barely save your own skins, and you still want to make a fortune." Uncle Chun shook his head. "Director Walter, as long as we can pay the bank debt, we'll accept anything." I watched them closely, then signed the contract. Lindsay immediately pulled out the contract she had prepared. The Fishermen's faces grew more serious as they read the clauses. The conditions were harsh. They were broke and desperate. The contract stated that the fishermen had to raise the stock according to my specific standards. Remember, no base salary. All equipment and the use of the dock now belonged to me. Uncle Chin's hands were trembling after reading it. Director Walter, this is making us laborers. I said coldly, if you don't want it, don't sign. I'm not forcing anyone. They looked at each other. No one dared to sign. Suddenly, a young fisherman stepped forward. I won't sign. Isn't this leading us to ruin? The others began to doubt. Yes, our ancestors were always their own bosses. How can we work for others? Uncle Chin also hesitated. Director Walter, couldn't you soften the conditions a bit? I smiled. Soften them. I walked to the big screen. I pressed the remote, and a video appeared on the screen, the exact moment they collectively broke the contract. The scene where they cornered me. Director Walter, 1.5 billion is a robbery. Throw it all in the sea, we won't sell you the fish. Without you, the world keeps spinning. Every word was clear. The fishermen's faces turned red when they saw the video. I kept playing it. The next clip showed them placing banners in front of my company. Corrupt boss, give me my money. I turned it off. Gentlemen, this is your true face. And you still have the nerve to negotiate. Uncle Chun lowered his head in shame. Director Walter, we were wrong. I was wrong. Wrong? Too late. Now before you. There are only two paths. Either you sign the contract and become my employees, or you wait for the bank to evict you. The fisherman fell silent. Then, Arthur suddenly spoke up. Director Walter, I'll sign. Everyone looked at him. Arthur spoke firmly. Director Walter did me a favor, and working with him, at least we won't starve. He stepped forward, took the pen, and signed. Uncle Chun grit his teeth. I agree too. With someone leading the way, the other fishermen signed one after another. Only the young fisherman still hesitated. I don't believe it. Without Director Walter, we really can't survive. He turned and left. I didn't stop him. As you wish. If you won't sign, leave. I don't need you. The young fisherman left in a rage. I looked at those who remained. Since you've signed the contract, starting tomorrow, everyone follows my rules. If you try any tricks again, you're out immediately. The fishermen replied in unison, yes, Director Walter. I turned to Lindsay and said, settle their bank loans. The money will be deducted from their future wages. Uncle Chun, overcome with emotion, almost burst into tears. Director Walter, you really are our savior. I said coldly, don't be so quick to thank me. The money must be repaid, and with interest. Uncle Chin nodded repeatedly. That's fair, that's fair. After the fisherman left, Lindsay asked me, Director Walter, by doing this, aren't you afraid they'll rebel again later? I smiled. Rebel? This time, if they dare to rebel, I'll make sure they can't even return to the fishing village. Lindsay handed me a document. Director Walter, this is an order from Mr. Lee. He wants 5,000 pounds of premium yellow croaker. He's offering 10,000 per pound. I looked at the document. Tell Mr. Lee, delivery in 1 month, quality guaranteed. But, Director Walter, the current capacity of the fishing village isn't enough. I stood up, then let them work overtime. Director Walter, if they don't make it, it comes out of their wages. The next day, I went to the fishing village in person. When the fishermen saw me, they greeted me with respect. Hello, Director Walter. I nodded and walked toward the dock. Starting today, everyone raises fish according to my standards. You start at 6 in the morning and finish at 8 at night. The fish raised will be inspected one by one. Those that don't comply won't be accepted. The fishermen looked at each other. Director Walter, isn't this standard a bit too strict? I smiled sarcastically. Listen, do you know how much Mr. Lee is offering? 10,000 per pound. And how much do we get? I said indifferently. You'll be paid by the piece. For every fish that meets the standard, you get 500. But if it doesn't, you get nothing. The fisherman got to work immediately. Don't worry, Director Walter. We're going to work hard. Just as I was leaving, I suddenly saw him. The young fisherman who hadn't signed the contract was loitering around furiously. I approached him. What are you doing here? The young fisherman stammered. I just wanted to see how the others work. I smiled sarcastically. See, didn't you say you could live without me? The young fisherman blushed. Director Walter, I was wrong. Could I also sign the contract? I looked at him. It's too late. Way too late. The young fisherman grew frantic. Director Walter, I beg you. I have elderly parents and young children. If I don't work, I really won't be able to survive. I turned to leave. That was your own decision. Don't blame others. The young fisherman knelt down. Director Walter, I truly admit my mistake. I stopped, without turning back. If you want to sign the contract, you can. But you'll have to do the hardest work and earn the least money. And a 3-month probation period. If you don't comply, you're out immediately. The young fisherman nodded repeatedly. I accept. Then I turned around. Then go find Lindsay to sign the contract. The young fisherman left, giving 1,000 thanks. Ash approached me. Director Walter, in the end, you have a soft heart. I looked at him. It's not a soft heart. It's giving them one last chance. If they don't take advantage of it, then there's no remedy. The fishing village was back in operation. The fishermen began working before dawn. They were 10 times more diligent than before. I stood on the dock, watching their busy figures. Lindsay approached me. Director Walter, I have to report something to you. Last night someone tried to damage the net cages, but the underwater warning radar detected it. I frowned. Who was it? Lindsay showed the surveillance footage. On the screen, several shadows were cutting the cage ropes with shears. I zoomed in on the image and recognized the leader's face. It was Boss Miller. That guy dares to come back, Lindsay said. He must want revenge to destroy our cages. I smiled sarcastically. Revenge? Let him pay for it. Tell them someone is sabotaging the fishing facilities. I have all the evidence. In less than half an hour, the police arrived. Boss Miller was still committing the crime at sea, never imagining he'd be caught. When the police boat surrounded him, he was stunned. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding." The police said coldly. "Misunderstanding?" The cameras recorded everything clearly. "Do you still want to deny it?" When they brought Boss Miller ashore, he saw me standing on the dock. He said through gritted teeth, "Director Walter, it was you who called the police." I smiled. "And if I hadn't, did you think I'd ignore you destroying my cages?" Boss Miller roared, "Don't get cocky. I won't leave you in peace." I approached him. "Boss Miller, you no longer have a chance." I turned to the police. "This man isn't just sabotaging fishing facilities. He previously used chemicals to treat dead fish and sell them as fresh. I have the evidence right here." Lindsay handed over a thick file. The officer skimmed through it, and his expression grew increasingly serious. "We must investigate this at the station." Boss Miller panicked. No, I was wrong. I was really wrong." But the police didn't listen to his explanations. They took him away immediately. Lindsay asked me, "Director Walter, this time Boss Miller will probably go to jail." I nodded. "For food safety issues, a sentence of 3 to 5 years won't be a problem. Furthermore, we will seize all of his assets." To compensate the consumers he cheated, Lindsay went to handle it immediately. The fishermen, seeing this scene, held their breath. "Director Walter is too ruthless. You can't offend Director Walter," Uncle Arthur said, approaching cautiously. "Director Walter, you have truly done a good thing for the village." I looked at him. "Uncle Arthur, focus on the work and don't think about nonsense." Uncle Arthur nodded repeatedly, saying, yes, I'll work hard." Over the next 2 weeks, the efficiency of the fishing village was amazing. The fishermen gave their all to raising the fish. They feared that if they didn't comply, their wages would be cut. I personally inspected the fish that failed the test every day. Every single one was sent back to be raised again. At first, the fisherman complained. "Director Walter, this fish is already very good. Why didn't it pass?" I grabbed the fish and said, "Look at the scales. The color isn't golden enough. That indicates insufficient nutrition. And look at the eyes. They aren't clear enough. That indicates problems with the water quality. If I take this fish to Mr. Lee, it will ruin my reputation." The fishermen listened and didn't dare to speak up again. They began raising the fish with more care, checking the water quality every day and adjusting the feed proportions. Little by little, the approval rate increased. I looked at those bright, golden yellow croakers. I nodded with satisfaction. "Good, keep it up." Hearing this, the fishermen grew even more encouraged. At that moment, Ashley approached me. "Director Walter, Mr. Lee's order is about to expire. Do we have enough stock?" I checked the data. "Almost. In 3 more days, we will be able to complete the 2,500 kilos." Ashley sighed in relief. Thank goodness. But the next day, a problem occurred. Early in the morning, Uncle Arthur came running in, alarmed. "Director Walter, something is wrong. There's a massive fish die-off in the cages." My expression changed. "What happened?" I immediately went to the site and saw dozens of dead fish floating in the cages. I pulled one out to examine it. The gills were black. It was clearly poisoned. "Where's the water quality report?" Lindsay pulled out the data immediately. "Director Walter, the water quality is fine. Someone must have poisoned them." I narrowed my eyes. Someone is causing trouble again. I checked the security footage. Sure enough, a shadow poured something into the cages last night. I zoomed in and recognized the face. It was the young fisherman. I smiled sarcastically. "Fine, I gave him a chance, and this is how he pays me?" Lindsay asked. "Walter, should we call the police?" I shook my head. "No, I'll handle this myself." I sent for the young fisherman. He didn't know the matter had been discovered and feigned indifference. "Director Walter, were you looking for me?" I stared at him. "Where were you last night?" The young fisherman said nervously, "I was sleeping at home." I smiled coldly. "Really? Then explain this to me. Why did the camera record you pouring poison into the cages?" The young fisherman turned pale instantly. I didn't do it. I played the surveillance video directly. In the image, his face could be seen clearly. The young fisherman's legs went weak, and he fell to his knees. "Director Walter, I was wrong. Someone gave me 50,000 to do this." I narrowed my eyes. "Who?" The young fisherman said, trembling. It was Ashley's friend. He said he wanted revenge on you." I smiled sarcastically. "Ashley? She's already in jail, and she can still cause trouble?" Lindsay said. "Director Walter, even though Ashley was arrested, she's only in protective custody. She still has accomplices outside." I nodded. "It seems I have to eliminate this problem at the root." I looked at the young fisherman kneeling on the floor. "Your contract is canceled. Leave the village right now. I don't want to see you again." The young fisherman pleaded. "Director Walter, give me another chance." I said coldly. "A chance? I already gave you one, but you didn't value it." "Security? Throw him out." The young fisherman was dragged away. I turned to Lindsay and said, "Investigate all of Ashley's connections. Don't leave anyone out." Lindsay nodded. Furthermore, as I looked at the dead fish, I calculated mentally. I didn't want to crawl ever again. After handling the poisoning incident, the fishing village finally regained its calm. Mr. Lee's order was delivered on time, and he was very satisfied. "Director Walter, the quality of this batch of fish is even better than I expected." I smiled and thought, as long as Mr. Lee is satisfied, it's fine. Mr. Lee lowered his voice. "Director Walter, I have an even bigger order. I don't know if you're interested." "Speak." "I'm setting up a 3-star Michelin restaurant. I need a stable, top-quality supply long-term. Price is no object." I thought for a moment. "Mr. Lee, it's not that I don't want to accept. It's just that the village's current production capacity is limited." Mr. Lee nodded. "I understand. But if you can expand the scale, Walter, I'm willing to pay for a year's worth of goods in advance." My eyes lit up. "How much?" 50 million. I reached out my hand. "Deal." Back at the fishing village, I gathered all the fishermen for a meeting. I have good news to announce. The fisherman leaned in. I've received a massive order. We need to triple our production capacity. That means your income will also triple. The fisherman listened intently. Right now, we must expand. This requires more staff and equipment. I plan to invest 20 million to expand the dock. But there is one condition. The fisherman went silent immediately. What condition? I'll say it again. Starting today, all operating rights for the fishing village belong to me. You are my employees. You only handle the breeding and the fishing. All income will be distributed proportionally. I take 70% and you take 30%. The fishermen looked at each other. Someone whispered, "Isn't this just selling the whole village to Walter?" Uncle Charles hesitated. "Walter, isn't this proportion a bit?" I smiled with contempt. "Uncle Charles, do you think it's unfair? Then let me ask you, with my technology, with my channels, and with my capital, could you guys raise high-grade yellow croaker? Could you sell it for 10,000 a month?" Uncle Charles was speechless. I continued, "I'm investing 20 million. I'm taking all the risks. You just need to work and collect your money. Isn't that fair enough?" The fisherman fell silent. Then Asher stepped forward. "I agree. Walter is right. Without him, we're nothing." With Asher taking the lead, the other fisherman nodded. "I agree too. Either way, working with Walter is better than before." Uncle Charles shook his head. "Fine, we'll do as Walter says." I felt satisfied. "Very well, then sign the new contract." I pulled out the contracts I had already prepared. The fishermen signed one by one, but suddenly, an uproar broke out at the village entrance. "Move! Everyone get out of the way." I saw Simon storming in furiously with several men behind him. The fishermen were stunned. "Simon, how did you get out?" Simon sneered. "Why wouldn't I? I'm here for justice." He pointed at me. "Walter, you're using a technological monopoly to force these fishermen into unfair contracts. This is illegal." I laughed. "Mr. Simon, are you looking for trouble again?" Simon pulled out a document. "This is a lawsuit a lawyer drafted for me. I'm suing you for illegal monopoly and commercial coercion." The fishermen began to hesitate. Simon has a point. A 70-30 split is a bit unfair. We do the work, but Walter takes the most. Uncle Charles wavered too. "Walter, why don't we discuss this again?" I looked at these flip-floppers and smiled with inward contempt. "Discuss it? Fine." I pulled out my cell phone and called Mr. Lee. "Mr. Lee, I'm sorry. I can't accept the 50 million order." Mr. Lee was shocked. "Why?" "Because the fishermen think the percentage I'm giving them is too low and they don't want to continue." Mr. Lee sighed. "What a shame. I was going to introduce you to some Michelin restaurant owners." "Well, I'll look for another supplier." I hung up the phone. "Look, fisherman, did you hear that? A 50 million order is gone." The fishermen were stunned. "What? 50 million? Uncle Charles rushed over. "Walter, don't joke." I said coldly, "I'm not joking. Since you think it's unfair, then we have no business. I'm announcing right now that I'm canceling all contracts. I'm withdrawing all investments." "Walter, no, we didn't mean that." Simon smiled with disdain. "What are you acting for? Do you think we can't do anything without you?" "I'll survive." I look at him. "Oh, really? Then tell me, without my technology and my channels, how will you sell the fish?" Simon says smugly, "I've already contacted several seafood merchants. They're offering to buy at 3,000 a kilo." Hearing this, the fishermen's faces light up again. 3,000 a kilo isn't bad. I smile. "Then I wish you a good partnership." I turn around and leave. Lily follows me. "Boss, are you really giving up?" "I'm going to invest." "No, I want them to see who the real vampire is." Sure enough, not 2 days passed before the merchant Simon brought show their true faces. They demand a deposit of 50,000 from the fishermen, and the purchase price drops from 3,000 to 2,000. The fishermen realize they've been cheated. "Simon, didn't you say it was 3,000 a kilo?" Simon is also stunned. They say market conditions have changed. Uncle Charles trembles with rage. "You're a liar. You've ruined me again." The fishermen surround Simon and beat him. He flees in terror. "It's not me. They tricked me." Uncle Charles collapses, tears streaming. "It's over. This time it's really over." Arthur sighs. "I told you, following Walter was the only way, but you wouldn't listen." Uncle Charles grabs Arthur's hand. "Arthur, can you ask Walter again?" Arthur shakes his head. "I can't help you this time. You've made him lose faith." Uncle Charles closes his eyes in despair. Just then, the weather forecast issues an urgent alert. A high-intensity typhoon is approaching in 3 days. The fishermen collapse. The floating cages won't hold. We'll have nothing. Uncle Charles looks at the dark clouds in the distance and breaks down in desperate tears. Simon jumps up again. "It's all Walter's fault. If he hadn't withdrawn the investment, we wouldn't be like this." Uncle Charles grabs him by the collar. "If it weren't for you, how would we have offended Walter? You said the contract was unfair and incited us to break it. Now that something happened, you blame everyone else." The other fishermen grow desperate too. "Yes, it's all Simon's fault, that liar. He's ruined us." Cornered, Simon turns pale. "It wasn't me. Walter is just cruel." Uncle Charles slaps him. "You still dare to argue? I'm telling you, when Walter gave us guarantees and invested 1,200,000 in the pier, where were you? When he gave us the deep-sea cages, where were you? He did us a favor, and you incited us to repay him with ingratitude." Simon is speechless. Uncle Charles points at him. "I'm telling you, as of today, get out of this fishing village and never come back." The fishermen chant, "Yes, get out. We don't want you here." Simon flees with his tail between his legs. Uncle Charles looks at the dark clouds and sighs. "Can you help us one last time?" Arthur responds with difficulty. "Uncle Charles, it's not that I don't want to, but you all went too far. Walter gave you several chances, but you never valued them." Uncle Charles kneels. "I know, but now the typhoon is coming. We are truly desperate, please. Have mercy on these old bones. The other fishermen also kneel. Arthur, please, I beg you. Arthur looked at the neighbors he had grown up with, and his heart softened. I'll try, but I can't guarantee that Boss Walter will accept. At that moment, I was in the office looking at the typhoon's trajectory map. Don't talk nonsense, Director Walter. The typhoon will arrive the day after tomorrow. The fishing village won't be saved. I nodded. Let them face the consequences. Just then, Arthur knocked on the door and entered. Boss, I have a favor to ask you. I looked at him. Arthur knelt on the floor. Boss, the people in town already know they were wrong. They already kicked out the speculators. Give them one more chance. I smiled with disdain. Arthur, you are too soft-hearted. They betrayed me over and over again. And now that they have problems, they come to beg me. Do you think I should help? Arthur lowered his head. I know they did wrong, but if the typhoon hits, they will really lose everything. I remained silent for a moment. Arthur nodded immediately. Whatever you say, they will obey. I pulled out a document. This is a new cooperation agreement. Every fisherman must sign and provide a thumbprint. They are no longer partners, but my employees. I take 80% of the income, they get 20%. And if anyone dares to betray me again, I'll make sure they lose everything. Arthur looked at the agreement and gasped. Boss, isn't this condition too severe? I said coldly. Severe? Then let them wait for the typhoon to wash them away. Arthur shook his head. Fine, I'll go tell them. He took the agreement back to the fishing village. When the fishermen saw the clauses, their expressions shifted. Isn't this too cruel? Yes, it's true. We do the hard work and only get 20%. Uncle Charles grabbed the contract. Sign it. We have to sign. What else do you want? Boss Walter is willing to help us. That's already a huge favor. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't even have that 20% now. He took the pen, signed first, and pressed his thumbprint down. The other fishermen looked at each other and signed one by one. Arthur brought the agreement back to me. Seeing the thumbprints, I felt nothing but contempt. Very well. Tell them I'll send a team tomorrow to reinforce the net cages. If anyone plays tricks again, I'll make sure they regret it for the rest of their lives. Arthur nodded. Don't worry, Boss Walter. This time they are truly afraid. The next day, I brought the technical team to the village. When the fishermen saw me, they stood respectfully on both sides. Good morning, Boss Walter. I ignored them and went straight to the net cages. I moved all the fish from the common cages into the deep-sea cages designed to withstand the storm. The technicians started working immediately. The fishermen finally felt a sense of relief. It turns out the deep-sea cages I had given them were the only thing that could save them. They were specifically designed to resist the wind. The cage material was special and the structure solid. They could automatically submerge into deep waters to avoid the typhoon. Uncle Charles looked at the cages with teary eyes. Boss Walter had already thought of us from the very beginning. The other fishermen also lowered their heads in shame. Yes, it's true. Boss Walter has been so good that he didn't forget anything. He's been so good to us. And we have hurt him time and time again. I said coldly. Now you know, but it's too late. Work hard. Don't disappoint me. The fishermen responded in unison. Yes, Boss Walter. The night before the typhoon, the entire coast was pitch black. Only our deep-sea cages remained intact at the bottom of the sea, while those of other nearby fishing villages were destroyed by the storm. The next day, when the typhoon passed, I took the fishermen to inspect the cages. When they saw all the fish alive and jumping, they all wept. Uncle Charles knelt before me. Boss Walter, you are our savior. The other fishermen also knelt down. Boss Walter, from now on we will work hard. We will never betray you again. I looked at them. Remember what you've said today. If there is a next time, I won't give you another chance. The fisherman bowed repeatedly. There won't be, never again. I turned to Linda and said, count the losses. Whatever needs compensation, pay it. Whatever needs repair, fix it. Also notify Mr. Lee that our products can be supplied normally. Linda nodded, understood. I look at the sea in the distance. A smile forms at the corner of my lips. This play is finally coming to an end. After the typhoon, the surrounding fishing villages were devastated, but only our village is intact. The news spreads. Fishermen from other villages came to look. How is this possible? Such a massive typhoon. And your cages didn't suffer any damage? I stood there with pride. This is a gift from Boss Walter. Deep-sea cages resistant to typhoons, specially designed for storms. The fishermen from other villages were so jealous their eyes turned red, because they really had incredible luck. Meeting a good person like Boss Walter, Charles sighed. It's not luck. We just didn't appreciate him and almost made Boss Walter leave. At that moment, Sarah appeared again, this time bringing a middle-aged man in a suit. Gentlemen, let me introduce you to Mr. Miller, a specialist in labor litigation. The fishermen's expressions changed when they saw Sarah. You still dare to return? Sarah smiled with contempt. Why wouldn't I? I'm here to help you defend your rights. Pointing at me, she said, Boss Walter forced you to sign an unfair 80-20 contract. This is clearly labor exploitation. Mr. Miller said that this type of contract is legally invalid. Mr. Miller adjusted his glasses. That's right. According to labor law, an employer cannot force workers to sign unfair contracts. You can sue Boss Walter and demand a redistribution of the profits. The fishermen looked at each other. Some began to hesitate. If we could get a bigger share, it would be better, of course. The 80-20 split is really a bit low. But Charles stepped forward. Enough. What more do you want? If it weren't for Boss Walter, we wouldn't even be alive. And you still want more money? Have you been brainwashed? Do we work hard just to get 20%? Mr. Miller also said, Correct. You have the right to demand more profits. It's a right the law grants you. The fisherman began to whisper, why don't we try it? We have nothing to lose. Charles trembled with rage. You are incorrigible. He turned around and left. Arthur also followed him. I'm not participating in this. The remaining fishermen, instigated by Sarah, actually signed the power of attorney. Mr. Miller nodded with satisfaction. Very well. In 3 days, I will formally file the lawsuit against Boss Walter. Sarah smiled smugly. Boss Walter, let's see how you handle it this time. The news reached me quickly, Sophie said with indignation. Boss Walter, these people are truly ungrateful. You saved their lives, and now they're suing you. I just smiled. Let them sue. I have something to say too. Sophie was stunned. Boss Walter, aren't you angry? I shook my head. What's the point of getting angry? These people are like this. They don't cry until they see the coffin. Prepare the documents. I'll show them. I'll show them what it means to shoot yourself in the foot. 3 days later in court, Mr. Miller argued vehemently. Your Honor, Boss Walter, taking advantage of his technological monopoly, forced my clients to sign an unfair contract. The 80-20 split is clearly unreasonable and seriously harms the rights of the workers. I request the court to declare the contract null and void, and demand that Boss Walter compensate my clients for their losses. The fisherman, sitting in the audience, waited with hope. This time, surely, we'll win. Then we can get more money. The judge looked at me. Defendant, do you have anything to say? I stood up. Your Honor, I have evidence to present. Sophie handed over a thick file. This is the record of every investment made in the fishing village. Deep sea cold chain dock, 1.2 million. Typhoon-resistant deep sea cages, 800,000. Oxygenation system and preservation equipment, 500,000. Technical training and staff salaries, 300,000. Total, 2.8 million. The judge flipped through the file. Are all of these your investments? I nodded. Exactly. Furthermore, all of this equipment is my property. It is in my name. The fishermen only use my equipment for farming, and then I buy their catch. This is a normal commercial partnership. There is no coercion. Mr. Miller immediately refuted my claim. But an 80-20 split is clearly unreasonable. I laughed sarcastically. Unreasonable? Then let me ask you something. Without my equipment, could they even raise those premium golden fish? Without my channels, could they sell them for 10,000 a kilo? Without my tech, could they protect them in a typhoon? Mr. Miller was speechless. I continued. Besides, they signed this contract voluntarily. No coercion. If they thought it was unfair, they simply could have chosen not to sign. I never forced them. Sophie handed over another document. This is the recording from that moment. It proves that I said, if you don't want to sign, don't sign. I'm not forcing you. The recording played, and my voice could be heard clearly. If you don't want to, don't sign. I didn't force them. The plaintiff's faces changed instantly. The judge looked at them. Plaintiff, is what the defendant says true? The fisherman stammered, unable to speak. Mr. Miller hurriedly spoke up. Your Honor, even if it's voluntary, an 80-20 split is far too unreasonable. I said coldly, unreasonable? Then I'll do another calculation for you. I invested 2.8 million. I took all the risks, and I provided all the technology and channels. They only have to work. They take zero risk and still receive 20%. When the typhoon hit, I absorbed the losses. They didn't have to pay a single cent. Is that not fair enough? The judge nodded. The defendant has a point. Mr. Miller turned pale, but the judge interrupted him. There is no but. According to contract law, contracts signed voluntarily by both parties, as long as they do not violate the law, are valid. The plaintiff's claim is not supported by this court. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck. The fishermen were stunned. How is this possible? We lost. Mr. Miller turned pale and tried to sneak away, but I stopped him. Mr. Miller, don't leave so fast. I still have something to say to you. Mr. Miller froze. I walked toward him, step by step. You incited the fishermen to betray me. Do you think I don't know your goal? Mr. Miller's face changed color. I don't know what you're talking about. I laughed. I laughed sarcastically. You don't know? Then, I'll tell you. When you incited the fishermen to break the contract, it was because Mr. Wong gave you a 500,000 bribe. You stole Ashua's fish to auction them off, trying to pay your debts. You hired a poisoner for revenge. Now you hired a lawyer to sue and ruin me. But unfortunately, you failed every time. Mr. Miller trembled all over. What proof do you have? Sophie handed over a document. This is Mr. Wong's transfer record for 500,000. The beneficiary is you. This is the video of you inciting a young fisherman to poison the fish. And this is your chat with the lawyer. Solid evidence, right? Do you still want to deny it? Mr. Miller felt weak and fell to his knees. Mr. Han, please, I can't take any more. I beg you to forgive me. I looked at him. Can I forgive him? It's too late. I turned to the bailiff and said, this person is involved in multiple crimes. Please take him for investigation. The bailiff approached immediately. They handcuffed Mr. Miller. As they led him away, he screamed desperately, Mr. Han, I know I was wrong. I'm so ashamed. I looked at the fisherman. Gentlemen, this farce ends here. Go back to work and don't disappoint me again. The fishermen lowered their heads in shame. Yes, Mr. Han. After the trial, the fishing village became completely calm. The fishermen no longer dared to be suspicious and worked obediently. I stood on the pier, watching them busy at work. Sophie approached. Mr. Han, the client is pressuring us for the shipment. He says the Michelin restaurant opens next month. I nodded and told her the goods would arrive on time. Sophie hesitated for a moment. Mr. Han, there is still something I must report to you. This typhoon will be stronger than the last one. It's estimated to be a once-in-a-decade super typhoon. I reflected for a moment. Notify all the fishermen. to prepare for the typhoon immediately. Also, contact the nearby fishing villages and ask them if they want to join our protection plan. They can rent our deep-sea cages. Ryan was stunned. Boss, if you're going to help other villages, I'll handle it. It's not help, it's business. The rent is 10,000 a day. Ryan understood immediately. I'm on it. The news spread. The chiefs of the nearby fishing villages arrived. Boss, I heard your cages can withstand typhoons. Could you rent them to us? Yes, but with conditions. What conditions? The rent is 10,000 a day, and you must pay 7 days in advance. The village chiefs gasped. 70,000. That's too expensive. I spoke with indifference. Expensive? Calculate how much you'd lose if the typhoon hits. Hundreds of thousands of fish destroyed. What is 70,000? The village chiefs looked at each other. But we don't have that much cash. I stood up. Then there is no solution. Please, leave. The chiefs panicked. Boss, could you make an exception? We can mortgage the fish. I shook my head. No, I only accept cash. The chiefs gritted their teeth. Fine, we'll get the money. They left dejected. Ryan asked me, Boss, what if they can't get the money? I smiled. If they don't get it, then they'll lose hundreds of thousands. By then, they'll come back to beg me. Sure enough, 2 days later the chiefs returned, this time with the cash. Boss, we have the money. Can we rent the cages? I looked at the stacks of bills. You can. Sign the contract. After signing the contract, the chiefs felt relieved. Thank you, boss. You've truly saved us. I said with indifference. Don't mention it. This is just business.